And I will also start up our Facebook Live now. I don't need a call to action button. I just want to. Let's see. I might need to do it again. Hang on one second. Or live on Facebook. And I've got 2 more coming. See if
you can hear that without me.
Live.
I'm sorry?
You can hear that without me, right?
What do you mean?
I'm going to be on this for an hour.
Okay.
Kat, go ahead and mute yourself.
I will. Hold on one second. I was getting my keyboard.
No worries. Preparing for streaming. Go live. All right, guys, we should be live on the Facebook. We kind of never know if it sticks or not. But we're definitely got our Zoom group here. Wait, there's a couple more we're going to let in here. And then once they're in, I am going to begin. Okay, hi everybody. My name is Sherry Stout. I'm with Main Street Reads outside Charleston, South Carolina, in our sleepy little bedroom town of Somerville, South Carolina. And I was delighted to hear from Carol. Carol and I have been friends, mostly internet friends, once in a while live for many years. I'm incredibly excited about her book. I got an early copy, just saying. Come for the book, stay for the character names. Are there 2 better names ever than Orchid and Phoenix? No. Fantastic. I'm really excited about this. So Carol is an author and Lone Star Writing Contest finalist. She's a marketer. She's a strategist. She has done a number of posts for Where Writers Win about marketing and cover choices. And this book, though it's just now coming out, is already an American Fiction Awards winner. So we're very excited about that. With her tonight is Meredith. Meredith is a filmmaker who has a Cannes Film Festival bound, which is very exciting. She's going to talk to us about that a little bit too. So what we're going to do is let you take on over, Carol, and I will be here monitoring the chat, gang. Anyone who wants to make a comment, you can use the chat on the lower bit, and I will keep track of those, and at appropriate spots, ask you those questions that the folks are asking, okay? At the end of it, if you want to do a free-for-all, we will unmute everybody, and you can ask your questions live. If it gets so that we can't hear somebody, we'll mute you again and hold it to chat. Fair enough? So, Carol, take it away.
Excellent. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is truly exciting. This is the first launch event for Goodbye Orchid. I'm so looking forward to spending time with all of you. this is what we're going to do. We're going to have a little time for welcome and thank yous. We're going to talk a bit about Goodbye Orchid. And like Sherry said, we're going to open it up for Q&A afterwards. So I just want to start first of all by saying, I hope everybody here and all of your loved ones are healthy and well. It is still a crazy, crazy time. And, in some ways it's hard, of course, school's coming back in session. It's not quite what we might have imagined last school year, but it also is creating opportunities. And tonight, feels to me like one of those opportunities, because where else could we have a launch party that is spanning so many cities and states and places and time zones? And I so appreciate all of you being here. I so appreciate Sherry for welcoming us, and Main Street Reads for welcoming us, for Meredith, who actually just lives down the street from me, even though we're here on separate Zoom panels, and joining me as an author and screenwriter as well. And each of you, I'm so excited. In fact, I really wanted to start with you, and this is kind of the way I am too. Like I just love that you all showed up, that you're giving us your time, and would love to hear from you. You can put it in chat. I'm going to ask a couple of poll questions to get us warmed up before we start talking about Goodbye Orchid specifically. And the first one simply is that idea that we are here from all different places. So I would like to know where everybody is here from. So if you could either tell me or put it in the chat box, where are you zooming in from tonight? So for sure, Memphis, Tennessee. One of my favorite movies was from Memphis. New Jersey's definitely in the house. I see lots of New Jersey in the house, and that's exciting. I know South Carolina's in the house. Melissa, great to see you here. Minnesota. Yay, Peter. He's the godfather of my son. Yes, Janelle from Chicago. You see, this is like, we wouldn't be able to have Janelle at a launch party if we had it live, but look at this. We're all together virtually, and it's lovely to see where everyone's from. And Doc, you are going to get to know Doc Jacobs. We're going to introduce him when we get into Goodbye Orchid and why he's here. You're going to actually see his review of the book. He's an incredible person. I can't wait to tell you about him. But he's actually in Ohio tonight, but normally in California. San Diego actually named a day after him. There's a Doc Jacobs Day in San Diego. So we have a really esteemed group of writers and readers and friends, and this is absolutely lovely. So I was thinking about today because, today is September 9th. It's 9/9, and our event started at 9 p.m. East Coast time. So it's 9 p.m. on 9/9, and I got a little curious about what might be special about today. I don't know if you know, there's an actual, there's a national calendar website that says what each day is for. So I looked up today, and it turns out today is National Wiener Schnitzel Day. I could not come up with any link between Wiener Schnitzels and Goodbye Orchid. You haven't read the book, but just take my word for it. There are no Wiener Schnitzels harmed in the making of Goodbye Orchid. So I could not come up with a link there. However, it is also National Teddy Bear Day. And very specifically, thank you, Christine. You are so smart. Specifically, it's National Care Bear Day. And I read about this. Hi, Laura from New Jersey. So National Care Bear Day is about giving and volunteering. It's actually about acts of kindness. So here's another place where I'd love to hear from you. Put it in the chat box or just speak up, totally fine. Tell me, tell me about a time you've experienced an act of kindness or you've gifted an act of kindness to somebody else. I would love to hear about these. So think about that, put in the chat box, tell me about it. And while you're thinking about that and doing that, I'll tell you why that is relevant for talking about Goodbye Orchid. Because actually, so you see the book, it's a physical thing, it's a story, it's fiction, but also it is very much a book of my heart. And, my aspiration, I think in general, is to really inspire hope and empathy. And I absolutely wish for Goodbye Orchid to do that. I've actually gotten amazing evidence of its ability to do that, because it has been, you know, the feedback I'm getting is just so heartwarming and so touching, and I'm going to share a little bit about that with you. But I see the, kind is my favorite four-letter word, very lovely. Surviving a near-death car wreck is incredible. I see that these acts of kindness are rolling in. Keep them coming in. I'm going to test technology while you guys are sharing these acts of kindness. I am going to try to, Sherry, I think it says disabled participant screen sharing. If you could allow me to screen share, that would be awesome, because I'm going to introduce everyone to Goodbye Orchid through some visuals.
You should be good.
Okay, good. Then you guys can tell me if that's working.
There we go.
Yeah, okay. So earlier, while we were getting set up, we were talking a little bit about the cover for Goodbye Orchid, and there's a story behind it, which I will share with you in a little while, and why the cover is what it is. Sherry also mentioned that the book has been awarded an American Fiction Award for urban fiction. And also, 3 days after that, Pinnacle Book Achievement Awards reached out to say Goodbye Orchid had won for multicultural fiction. So it was, you know, just such a thrill, and I'm incredibly humbled by these honors. Really, for the book, it's really lovely to see. And I think, yeah, did I hear a question?
No, that was a congratulations. That's amazing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. And like I said, I'm just hoping that the book can touch, you know, hearts and minds, and you know, if it can do any little bit of that, I'd be just completely thrilled. And so it is lovely to see things like, you know, as lists of the most anticipated books for the fall are coming out. Goodbye Orchid's been included on lists from BuzzFeed and Parade and Brit and Company. Travel and Leisure and Frolic, I think, was the latest one. I didn't even have time to put it on here. And I've just been so incredibly touched by, you know, what people said as they've been reading it. You know, Karen Tanabe, who's an incredibly talented author. If you haven't read 100 Suns, her book is just, you know, it's historical fiction, but it's also just amazing storytelling that is a page turner. I'm sure you can get that book through Main Street Reads as well. And so when she said to me that she had read Goodbye Orchid, and she just found it to be this expertly crafted novel that will tug not just on your heartstrings but on your soul, I think I probably almost cried tears of joy, which is how I felt when Susan Cushman also sent me her review. Just, you know, incredibly touched and grateful, and thank you for the recognition for Goodbye Orchid. So let me tell you a little bit about the story, though, because, and I'm going to try to go into where it goes into full screen, but sometimes this messes things up. So you tell me if the pages aren't turning or if you can't see or something. I'd love to introduce the story a little bit, you know, kind of character at a time. Sherry talked about the names of the characters, Phoenix and Orchid, and I'd love to share with you who are Phoenix and Orchid, and what's happening between them, and why is that meaningful? You know, why do I keep talking about heart, and how is this going to tug on heartstrings and on your soul? So let me first introduce you to Phoenix Walker. He is a 32-year-old when we meet him, entrepreneur, founder, CEO. He's actually created an ad agency called Counter Agency because he felt like there wasn't an agency that had enough heart in it, and he wanted to do things, he wanted to work for companies that really mattered and do work that really mattered. And so he started this agency at a really young age and had been, you know, really successful. So, you know, he's kind of at the top of his game when you come into the story in chapter 1, with all of this success, including really deeply falling in love with Orchid Page, which I'll tell you about in just a moment. But let me first tell you about his demons, because of course, no person, no character, no protagonist is perfect. And, you know, funny enough, his demons are about always thinking he needs to strive for that perfection, because that's what's made him successful in life. So he thinks this is the way to continue. and he holds himself to impossibly high standards, which may trip him up, as you might guess. Because what happens is, here now is, oh, and actually, sorry, I didn't realize I put in this animation here. Here's actually the first line to the book. You know, the book is called Goodbye Orchid. And you come into chapter 1, and Phoenix Walker never believed today was goodbye. That is where we start. He never believed it was goodbye with Orchid, whom in chapter 1, he's actually brought her to JFK Airport to send her on a business trip. She's leaving for 6 weeks to China. So Orchid Page is a 28-year-old. She's a marketer at L'Oreal. She's successful and self-made herself. And I say self-made because she's had trauma and difficulty in her life. She lost her parents at a young age. She witnessed their death from a traumatic accident, and that's affected every other moment in her life. Where she, and actually Phoenix knows this from the two of them working together on a military pro bono campaign, he knows that she's sensitive to images of trauma, that reminds her of her parents' accident, and that she tries to cocoon herself. She tries to protect herself from the world as a result. And so, you know, the book opens on this precipice, the two of them falling in love despite the fact that they're working together and know that that's taboo. They've been trying to fight, you know, crossing these professional boundaries, but they are falling deeply in love as she's leaving for this 6-week business trip. And what happens? A disaster. Disaster strikes. Disaster strikes in the form of an accident that changes Phoenix forever. And so this is where I'll pause the storytelling for a moment to share a little bit about the book cover. Because a book cover, when done well, should really encapsulate the key tension of a story. And in this case, the shattering of the orchids is really representative of the emotional and physical shattering that Phoenix and Orchid go through as a result of disaster striking, as a result of this accident. And so the big dilemma is, now Phoenix, forever changed, is faced with the hardest decision of his life. When he wakes in the hospital, when he sees that he is now the image of trauma, when he knows that that is the biggest trigger for the woman he loves, he needs to decide whether to love her, he needs to leave her. And so he has to decide whether to say, goodbye, Orchid. If you look on the Amazon listing, the top description actually says, rising from ashes is hard, giving up the one you love is harder. And this is why Phoenix is named Phoenix. He has burned from being at the top of his game, from being that successful entrepreneur, everything going for him has now just become ashes and has to figure out how to rise from ashes. Orchid's name also is meaningful because orchids, and now I own quite a few. My birthday was this past weekend and a bunch of orchids showed up in my house. My husband surprised me and it was lovely. But they have this reputation, and in my household, maybe it's reality as well, of being quite delicate. You know, they're known for being quite fragile and maybe, you know, hard to take care of and, you know, sensitive and delicate. But actually, I have a friend whose husband works in the orchid field. And what he says is, in the wild, orchids can grow on all types of surfaces and places you wouldn't imagine. And they're actually quite hardy. And so I love that juxtaposition, which is echoed in Orchid's character as well. You know, Phoenix sees her sensitive and delicate side, and yet there is the resilience and the hardiness on the inside, which ultimately comes out for many of these characters. I'd say all of these characters. And so one of the biggest questions I get when people hear about this story and hear about this critical tension is, where was the inspiration for this? And I actually share, although it may not seem immediately obvious, the inspiration's actually from combat wounded veterans. The writing of this book came at a time when we were having a hard time in our own family with one of my sons. And I was turning to writing as a place of solace that I'd known since I was a little girl and had journaled and had written all through my teen years and really, my whole life, writing stories or writing for myself. I turned to it as a place of solace. And at that time, I was seeing stories about combat wounded veterans in the news. And what really struck me was the strength and resilience with which they come back to good. And so, they are incredible heroes who are willingly going to dangerous places in the world to protect us, to protect our freedoms, at the top of their game, physically, mentally, everything. And then when they come back so wounded, then to be able to fight to get back to good is an incredibly inspiring hero's journey. And I share that in this moment, and I share this photo on the screen because I know we have on the line with us tonight, Doc Jacobs. Doc Jacobs, who's been decorated with a Purple Heart, honored with a Bronze Star of Valor. I cannot even begin to do justice to his story. I will try to tell you a little bit about him. Then I'm going to share with you how you can learn a lot more about him. I feel incredibly honored that he's here tonight, that he read my book, that he loved my book. And I think what touched me so much was he said that I captured not only his experience and really took him back to that place of his own experience after being injured overseas, but also that I gave him new insight into how others around him may have experienced this. And so you can see his quote there, but what I'll share with you is, a little bit about his story that I just think is so incredible, that after being blown up by an IED, improvised explosive device, coming back, having lost a leg, having injuries to multiple limbs, and having to go through a really long, period of rehab. After all of that, he actually fought and won the right to go back into active duty and served in active duty for another 6.5 years after that. And that's not the end of the story. Because in addition, yes, and he's on the line, so he's hearing every word. And he's in Ohio because he's helping to take care of his sick grandmother. Like, he's just such an amazing, giving person. I'm going to give you more evidence of that. He now has a Doc Jacobs Foundation, which is raising money to help kids of military families. Last year, he gave one of his kidneys to save a life. Like, the halo over his head, I cannot imagine how bright it shines and how big it is. He's actually just written his life experiences in a memoir. It's called There and Back Again. It's also published by Kohler Books, full transparency. And it is coming out in weeks. So if you're at all intrigued by this story, please look for that. I'm really, really touched that he's here and that he read and loved Goodbye Orchid. But also Aaron Michael Grant, the same thing. He's, back from war, still deals with traumatic brain injuries. And, he read Goodbye Orchid and he said, these protagonists' lives are shattered, they reemerge champions and show a true test of character. And I love how he says, Phoenix is all of us, unconquerable until we are conquered. And he calls Goodbye Orchid a tale of sacrifice and rebirth. There's the Phoenix. Heroism is in the details. just so touched. And these are just a few. There's actually many, many more, which is just like, you know, will choke me up at times when I see these. You guys are seeing when I'm changing the pages, right? Tell me that. Yes, awesome. Good, good. And then, you know, it's touched me so much that not only military veterans, but also people from all different, you know, walks and places and backgrounds have found, you know, kind of strength and heart in the book. My friend Goga, she's a designer. She has incredible taste. She's like, she dresses people for the red carpet. And when she read it, she came back and she said, you know, Goodbye Orchid really reminds me how life can change in an instant. It's beautifully written. It's about the power of true love and the ability to overcome deep-seated misbeliefs, because that's really at the heart of Phoenix and Orchid's story. These deep-seated misbeliefs about, you know, who you are and what defines you, and how, you know, if you're physically changed, does that change who you are? And then Chris as well, he's a writer and actor, you know, really touched me, talking about this hard-won wisdom for the protagonists, that the characters are richly drawn, that the book doesn't shy away from showing the flawed humanity, and that these individualized and honest perspectives make the journeys as surprising as they are engaging. So I hope that intrigues you a little. You'll have to get the book so you can see Susan Cushman's review. It's also on her blog, and it's also on my website. So there are many places where you can see how she compares Goodbye Orchid to a modern day affair to remember, which is a very cool comparison. She talks about the roller coaster of emotions. And I'm so pleased that she's here tonight as well. So if you are interested and intrigued by Goodbye Orchid, there is an opportunity for you to win a copy tonight. And of course, there's ways to pre-order because it is coming out on October 1st. So for tonight, I'd love to give out for a lucky winner a free ebook. There's a book club kit, which is amazing. This book club kit allows you to have a lot of fun with your friends reading Goodbye Orchid, because in it are discussion questions. In it are menu suggestions, and not just for food, but for beverage as well. So don't forget wine and words, please, you know, imbibe. There are recommendations for a playlist. I actually wrote this book listening to Jack White nonstop. And so you will see how that plays out in this book. The epigraph, the titles of the chapters, they pay homage to Jack White, you know, accompanying me during this entire journey. So there's a lot of fun in this book club kit, and there's printable bookmarks. So all of that will be there for one lucky winner. And the way to win is to either sign up for my newsletter and then follow me on different social media. Everything's on that one, hopefully very easy URL, that linktr.ee/cvdh. If you go there, there's links to Twitter and Instagram. I'll actually show you what it looks like in just a moment. And then you can sign up for my newsletter and let me know how many you followed. Every one you follow is another chance to win. Or if you're already on my newsletter, which many of you are, and thank you for that, you can just simply forward that newsletter to other friends and let Megan Forziati know, and she will count that as entries as well. And then you can also let Megan know if you want to join the street team for Goodbye Orchid. The street team is simply a group of people who believe in the, you know, the message and the hope and empathy that Goodbye Orchid wants to inspire, and therefore is willing to do simple things like, you know, if you're in a store anyway, to simply post a flyer or to chat with your local library about it if you feel up to it. So if that's what the street team is, feel free to join. And then of course, you know, tonight is sponsored by Main Street Reads. So Main Street Reads on their website has a spot for pre-ordering, and it's actually now only 2 or 3 weeks away. So it's not that far until you get the book or the ebook. It's available in paperback, hardcover, and ebook. And anyone who pre-orders is going to be invited to be part of my virtual book club. So there's going to be a group where we're going to read portions of the book together and discuss it, and it's going to be super fun. So please share that information with your friends, share it on social media. I appreciate all of that. Hopefully this is clear. Feel free to take a screenshot or let me know if you have any questions about how to win the package or how to follow the work of Goodbye Orchid.
Hey, Carol.
Yeah.
I've been holding off on pre-ordering the book because I missed the Kickstarter. Sorry. I wanted to order it from the place that would be most helpful for you. Would that be Amazon? Where's the most helpful place for me to order it?
Sherry, do you want to say anything?
Yes, Bookshop.
You're in the dark.
Sorry, I put myself in the dark on purpose. Yeah, so Bookshop, if you go to Main Street Reads and go to our calendar listing, you'll see this event there, and there are links. You can either click on the cover or on the link there. Bookshop is a very, very good way to go. It's sort of the bookstore happy alternative to Amazon, and those numbers absolutely do count.
It's great to be able to support independent bookstores. It was actually just National Independent Bookstore Day last weekend. Sherry had a big event. She was exhausted, and I'm happy to hear that because that means it was successful.
Yes.
And it's great to hear about her success. So yeah, thank you, Janelle, for the question. And it's okay that you missed the Kickstarter. I appreciate the thoughts. That's really kind of you to say. So if you go to Linktree, this is what it'll look like, that purple block on the right-hand side. It'll give you all these different places where you can follow and get to know more about the work. And they're not so duplicative. You know, you might think, oh, well, let me just pick one. But there are different purposes for the different ones. And I'll just point out a few that might be less obvious so that if you're thinking about it, that it might give you a reason why you might want to sign up. So the top link is actually to my website where you can use the contact page to sign up for my newsletter. And that's important because that's where I'm going to be announcing this free virtual book club for people who pre-order. I think some of the other socials are kind of self-evident, so I'm not going to talk about those, but I will talk about Goodreads. This is one that maybe not everybody knows about. It's actually a lovely place where you keep track of books you've read. I have found it helpful because I found sometimes I read books and then I forget. I remember, oh, I love this storyline, but what was the title? If I keep track of what I read in Goodreads, I can go back and look. And there's a sense of accomplishment too when you put in all these books that you've read, you know, and you can write reviews. And the reason I point this out is because right now there is a contest giveaway for Goodbye Orchid. There's an opportunity to win one of 10 copies of Goodbye Orchid on Goodreads. So that's another reason to go and actually follow my author profiles. You can find out about those giveaways and to enter the giveaway. And then the other place I'd point out that maybe is not as well known is called Bookbub. And so I have an author profile there as well. There's a link to be able to follow my author profile. And that's useful because when I do launch a Bookbub promotion, then you'll get to know about that. So just calling out the unusual ones that you might not know about. And then another thing to let you know about is that there are a lot of events coming up. And this month, there are 2 others. There's our local libraries actually sponsoring next Wednesday night as well. So that's another opportunity to let people know or to join yourself. Bring a friend, bring a glass of wine, bring your beverage. But tons of opportunities to hear more about the book. And actually, there's lots of different aspects to the book. I took you through a bit of the storyline. But what's interesting, I've actually recorded a bunch of these podcasts already, is that people come at it from different ways. You know, they're interested in hearing about, for instance, some are asking about the resilience aspect and where I've drawn resilience from my own life to write these characters that are incredibly resilient. Others are interested in the multicultural aspect. Orchid is half Asian. She's half Chinese, just like my children are. My children are half Chinese, and then the other half is Polish and Dutch. And so that's, you know, part of her identity. And she, you know, grapples with that. And in the story, she's on her way to a 6-week trip to China. And she thinks that that's the place where she's going to finally fit in, because in the US, you know, she doesn't look like everybody else. But in China, she's finally going to fit in. And you might guess it doesn't go exactly as she had anticipated. And so these different interviews give different insights. And so feel free, please join for whatever you can or whatever you're interested in. And then before we open up for Q&A, I just want to give one more like huge thank you. This is Sherry and Ellie. When I was down in South Carolina, we were at Kiawah Island at this beautiful resort called Sanctuary. Sherry and Ellie and I had such fun over dinner. I think it went on for hours and hours. I gifted them these personalized M&Ms, which had their names and their pictures on them. And it was just such a happy memory that I had to bring it up here. I met Sherry at a writers conference. I want to say, Sherry, it must be at least 7 years ago or more.
Yeah.
And I had at that time so new and just asked you for advice on, you know, who I should work with and which editor. And Ellie was the editor you recommended, and she totally shaped the work. There are stories. I mean, there are moments that Ellie can talk about in which she had a fork in the road, and we actually had to throw out an entire manuscript and start from scratch.
Mm.
And actually, the name Goodbye Orchid came through a wine-fueled Zoom call with Ellie. So it's really meaningful to me to have this first launch event with Sherry, and Ellie's not with us in person, but at least she's with us in spirit and with the, you know, not that she's dead. I don't want to make it sound like that. At least she's here in picture. The visual of Ellie and Sherry are here. And so I will stop talking there because I've said a whole lot, and you know, hopefully you can feel the heart that's really, you know, embedded into every page of Goodbye Orchid, and would love to hear your questions. You know, please feel free, unmute. Let me know not just questions about me or Goodbye Orchid, but also Sherry and Main Street Reads, and also Meredith, who is here. You know, you heard a little bit about her intro in the beginning, that she has a film going to Cannes. I mean, I cannot even imagine. I feel like that's nothing compared to American Fiction Awards and Pinnacle Book Awards. Like, just incredible. Her film Wink, she's an actor in it, as well as having written it. And I guess if it weren't for COVID, she'd be going to France. So if you have questions for her, please ask. The two of us, along with two other authors, actually had filmed an author panel, a local author panel for New Jersey authors, to talk about the writing process. And that aired tonight on Mendham TV, and it's still available. They have it up on their website if you're interested. It's a fun hour. We call it Wine and Words, Passion to Reality, because the theme across all of us is we took these incredible passions that we felt deeply and put them on the page and put them in words, you know. And there's a lot of writers in the group tonight, and hopefully you can relate to that feeling, feeling of satisfaction of being able to do that. And so feel free to check that out as well.
That is fantastic. So Carol, I have another. So Kat is a very popular author here locally. And again, I talked before that she came out with Gardenia Duty. But what I loved when you started talking is I really need to put the two of you together more often, because she also has the warrior aspect in common. And it's about the love of a stepfather for his stepkids. He takes on a whole lot, a package deal basically, and he is a good soldier to the end. And I love that we're writing more about that too. You know, Phoenix isn't, of course, wounded in the war, but nevertheless that we're honoring our heroes, and that's still important to us. You know, back in the day that, you know, Kat and I and some of us come from, you know, every single one of our dads, brothers, cousins, uncles served in some way or another for the greater good. And I don't see as much of that these days. There's often more of this selfish thing. So I completely respect. We give military discounts to anyone who's military that walks in the door, and we always thank them for their service. So I'm very, very excited the doc is here with us tonight too. So thank you, sir, for your service.
Absolutely. In fact, I probably forgot to mention that a portion of the profits from Goodbye Orchid are going to go to military and other nonprofits like Heather Abbott Foundation.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you know, are you familiar, has John by any chance introduced you to Barbara McNally, who's a co-author?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Barbara is lovely. She also gave me a beautiful endorsement quote that is on my
She's
website also.
Yeah, and that's that book is called, this is what I love about talking with authors, because there's so many ways to connect different authors together. And, you know, unlike other industries where there's so much competitiveness, in author world, everybody wants to see each other succeed. It is the kindest, most gratifying, grateful industry to work in, because they, you know, I can connect Carol with Barbara, who's on the West Coast and she's on the East Coast, and they can cross promote to their mutual benefit, but also, you know, just have that joy in seeing each other succeed. And Barbara's story came out of her witnessing a soldier with PTSD jump to his death off of a bridge. And she started doing some heavy investigation and found that not only was this a wounded warrior issue, but also the wives of wounded warriors, because as she puts it, you know, nobody buys them a cup of coffee or offers to give them a discount or any of those sorts of things. So she put together a whole foundation that creates these, what are called spa days for wives of wounded warriors, because they're not trained in, you know, how do you care for your soldier when they come back, when they've been had to be this whole other person? How do they reintegrate, yeah, into this world? So fascinating stuff.
That is absolutely beautiful and so relevant. Yeah.
So somebody asked earlier on if any of this was biographical. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. And I'd say yes, in some parts, for sure. But then there's also, of course, so much, you know, that's made up in fiction. And so definitely not every part. And I'd say a fairly small percentage is biographical or autobiographical. The parts that I think are most closely a part of me is Orchid having that Asian heritage, how she grapples with that feeling when she travels to China. Actually, I had lived in China for 2 years. My company sent me there on business. My career's been as a marketer and a technologist and a strategist. I went to China for 2 years to run our chocolate gifting business, which was an incredible experience. But it was really humbling to show up in a country where I was basically illiterate. You know, because when you're in Europe, you can kind of make out, even if you don't speak that language, you can make out the words a bit. They're similar enough. You can at least recognize the alphabet. But in China, it's just characters. And so being illiterate there was really humbling, and relying on my driver, relying on, you know, I needed help to be able to just navigate around the country. So that actually plays out in the book a bit. And actually, there are other parts too. Like I'd say Orchid's journey, there is definitely parts of her. I think because, I mean, who among us hasn't had hardship in our lives? And the hardship in my life that I've, you know, had over time definitely informs the emotional resonance. And I try to have the authenticity of the emotion come through on the page from my own experience, even if, you know, what Phoenix suffers or what they actually go through isn't my own experience. I think that that's the part I hope that rings true.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you from start to finish to write and bring this book to market?
Yeah, it's a long time. So I started 7 years ago, and I probably wrote pretty in a very focused period for about a year. And then I spent about a year in a very focused period refining and editing with Ellie, and also with my agent, Larry Kirschbaum, and with feedback from agents and editors. Larry and I tried to go to the big 5 publishers, and that didn't work out. And the project lay fallow. I'd say for 5 years, I probably was like, oh, well, we tried and just not meant to be. And then last fall, I went to a writers conference where I was speaking. I speak at writers conferences, and I love doing that because I find it's a way to give back to writers, share my expertise, and that makes me feel great because it is such an amazing community. You're so right, Sherry. And so at this writers conference, as a speaker, I was allowed to pitch agents and editors. And I thought, why not? Let me just chat with them and tell them about the storyline. And the excitement and, kind of the palpable emotion I was able to generate by sharing what the story was about reminded me how much I loved the story and reminded me that I really believed it should be out in the world. And so it was so amazing for it to come full circle. And when I signed the contract with John Kohler at Kohler Books to publish Goodbye Orchid, he said to me, this book is going to do good in the world. And that's why he offered me a contract. And I thought, he gets me, he gets the story, and this is the right place to be. And Sherry, again, I cannot thank you enough because it's Sherry. Sherry connected me with Ellie for the editing. Sherry connected me with John as the publisher. So it's just truly incredible.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I know that it's difficult to say now because you're in the throes of this book just coming out, and you're going to be on the road, although it might be a virtual road these days, probably for the next 12 months for sure. But everyone's going to want to know, what are you working on next?
It's a great question, Sherry. So we only talked about Phoenix and Orchid, and I see Susan smiling, so I wonder if she might be able to guess. Phoenix has a twin brother, Caleb, and I have twins too. And maybe that is part, the idea of having twins in the book did appeal to me because I'm a mom of twins. So Caleb is quite the opposite of Phoenix. Phoenix is, at least until the accident, he's put together, he's striving for that perfectionism that's going to be his demon. Caleb has really struggled growing up, struggled in school, struggled to find his place. He has finally found his place also as an entrepreneur, very different route. He owns his own tattoo parlors and he's successful in his own right, absolutely. But he has unfinished business with his ex-girlfriend, Sasha, red latex wearing Sasha, who plays a role in helping Phoenix recover. She plays a big role too, but and the two of them still are in each other's lives because she works in these tattoo parlors. So they're in each other's lives, but they have unfinished business that they whisper in my ear about that needs to be resolved, I think. So that is the next project.
Very good. Other questions, gang? I posted the link to the link tree there for everybody so that you can get to that easily. Comment from Doc. I wrote about how important it was to have my dad and grandma. Oh, I just lost him. There we go. Bedside throughout my whole time as an inpatient during my initial stay. Oh. Susan, I have to run, but this was fun, and Carol is amazing, and I love seeing her in action. Oh, thanks, Susan. Thanks so much to Sherry for hosting this great event. Great to meet you. Finally, Carol. Susan just blurbed another author of mine. I work with authors in my other business, Guys Where Writers Win, and we have an author out of Florida coming out October 25th, Joe Palmer, who wrote a book called A Mariner's Tale that Susan just blurbed. And it's it's a crusty old sailor kind of guy who takes a troubled kid under his wing. And we're looking forward to that one too. So, I mean, there's just, that's, for a while, there was just too much of this, Jersey Housewives kind of literature out there. And I love to see, and, part of it is I do work with a lot of Kohler authors, and what you said is very, very true. He wants to put books into the world that are going to do some good, but I'm seeing more and more of this from other publishers as well, even from the big five, where they're getting back to the heart. And we want to see more heart. People want, especially now, they want to see books where people care about each other and are doing for each other and are tackling the tough issues, the tough issues of racism and, bullying and all those sorts of things. So I'm completely loving that. It makes for, and I got to tell you, it makes for much deeper, more interesting book club reads. I'm going down to Beaufort this Saturday for the Low Country Book Club convention. And that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about. Grady Hendrix will be there, which is Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. And Wiley Cash, The Last Ballad, and Ruthie Landis, who wrote Beyond the Book Club. And that's what a lot of that discussion is going to be about. Talking down at the Pat Conroy Literary Center is, how to squeeze the juice out of books more than rather just having those very surfacey conversations, over wine and stuff. Hey, if the wine is flowing, you can really squeeze some extra juice and talk about those emotions, and not just how the book resonates with you, but how it relates to your own. And I love that you were talking about, feeling illiterate in a foreign country yourself, and how how Orchid goes through that. And it reminded me of a story, very, very sad story that I heard recently from a fellow bookseller. She's a Black-owned bookstore, owns a Black-owned bookstore in Goose Creek, South Carolina, called Turning Page. And she said that the Chinese restaurant up the street from her, when all this pandemic stuff struck, people were actually boycotting the restaurant.
Yeah.
And that just, stuff like that just breaks my heart. I mean, it just, if there's ever a time to kind of protect each other and love each other, this is it, not the opposite.
Yeah. That's so beautifully said. Yeah. It is. I don't go out very much, so not really with people because I've been working from home the last 6 months. But when I am out, I do, and I don't know how much of it's in my own head versus how much other people are thinking. But if I'm, walking past somebody and giving the 6 feet of birth, I do wonder, is it going through their head? Like, boy, is it your fault? Is it my fault? Like, I do like wonder, what does that look mean? And I do feel more sensitive about it right now in this moment, for sure.
You haven't had anyone outright say anything?
No,
Good.
no. And I'm really lucky. And in fact, I feel like there's also, I know there's such hard things going on in our country around race. I also see signs of hope, and maybe this is my tendency, is to be, kind of that hopeful, a little bit optimistic kind of person. I see it in my children's generation. So my guys are 17, they're high school seniors. And, I've asked them since middle school, are you getting bullied in school? And they're like, no, I don't know what that is. And in fact, I think there is something to this generation being really so open-minded. And maybe I'm in a cocoon, I don't know. But one example I'll share is my guys who are half Chinese are friends with twin girls who are adopted from China, from our friends, the Walshes. And the boys were my boys must have been at least 12 or maybe 13 years old when Carter, one of my guys, was overhearing my husband and I talking about the girls. And, we were talking about that they're still friends with the people they'd met during the adoption trip. And my son actually almost fell off his chair. He's like, the girls are adopted? It never crossed his mind.
Oh,
Even though
that's
the
great.
girls, right,
That's
they
great.
don't look like their parents at all.
Yeah.
He's like, those are their parents. How could they be adopted? So I feel like there's lots of glimmers of
When you
hope.
can say, I don't see race without an ulterior motive, that's something. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I do have to say, because I have 3 boys, that I have seen bullying within their grades. Actually, just one in particular, and race actually has come up a few times. My son's best friends are half Black and Asian, and but they have had instances recently where it has come up, and it's kind of something they've never dealt with before. They've never, not in my house. That's not how we, we look at anybody. So they, it's something that they've struggled with. And crazy enough is I've written a young adult book for young readers. And Ellie is actually my editor.
Oh,
So
great.
we're working through that, but I feel the character, there's things like bullying in there. There's the main character is dyslexic, and just different aspects of growing up and facing those things, and actually having your own moral compass, and trusting it. And that's kind of the focus of it. And I wrote the book writing it for my kids, just for them to have. But then they read it and they loved it, and they were kind of like, I think my friends would really like this book. And so that's when I started like, okay, let's make this into a book and kind of deal with the things that young children deal with, which is, the pressures and the different things that are thrown at them at such a young age, and to trust the moral compass that they've been taught, and not so much society or what other people are kind of throwing at them. And to learn how to be the protagonist in my book is, again, very shy, meek, but he's called on to be a leader of this group with superpowers, and he doesn't really know how to lead. And so he learns through the book how to lead and how to go by your own moral compass, instead of the outside world telling you what is right and what is wrong. So, it's one of those things that I think kids have to grapple with. I also want to add that I have read Goodbye Orchid, and before it was published, and I have to say it's touching, it's moving, it's the character, every single character is so unique within the book. I think you could probably write a book on each of the characters in the book. And when you said it was going to be about his brother, I thought I was actually going to bring up the brother,
Yeah.
On the call tonight, because I love that character so much. So each of the characters are so unique, and they bring something to the story. And it's about so many different things. There are so many different layers within the book, and it takes you down different paths that you don't necessarily think you're going to go. And I'm just, so proud of you, Carol. And I think it's a fabulous book. And I just had to express my feelings that everybody should read this book, because it is touching and gripping and about love. And I really adore the book. So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I have not finished the book yet, but I'm very early on, and I immediately fell in love with Caleb. I mean, he's fantastic. He is fantastic. So, Meredith, first of all, what's the working title of your book? Do you have a working title yet?
It's called Vulcan.
Yeah.
It's on it takes place on a different planet, called Vulcan. And the kids within the story, there are a group of kids who help create peace and harmony on their planet. But it also teaches that the protagonist is, Zeke is obsessed with Earth. So there's a lot of information about Earth, because he's obsessed with it, and he talks about how much water there is on Earth and what they do and the different things. So it kind of teaches kids about the planet, since he finds it so intriguing. But the underlying story is, it's an adventure book, but it's really about him finding his own self and his own self-worth, and how to be a leader when he never thought of himself as a leader.
That's great.
And to become a leader, he has to follow his own instincts and learn from his past mistakes and do his own way. Not that leaders come in all different packages, and everyone leads in a different way. You don't have to be, Thor to be a leader. You can still be him, Zeke, and still lead the way that he does. And there's there's two girls within the book. One's in the group and kind of is like, they picked you, kind of thing. And then there's a girl within his classmate who doesn't know he has that he creates peace and harmony and is in that special group, who is has a crush on him. And so there's different layers of kind of being in middle school with that. And then there's also great, different adventures that they go on because they have to create peace. So there's mystical dragons and gloids, which are huge frogs that they have to deal with, and things along the way. So
I love it. I love it. Well, that's going to be that'll be the tougher movie to make, I'm guessing.
Right. Expensive one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, very expensive. So since you come from the movie business, I expect you'll probably be helping Carol with the screenplay, right? Because don't we all want a movie made from the cool book? So just for fun now, as we close it out.
As a movie the entire time.
Okay, good. So
Yeah.
as we close it out, let's do something fun. Why don't the two of you tell us who should play each character in the movie version?
Oh my gosh. Well, you can see I already cast Phoenix, which not sure David Beckham's available, and maybe he's a little older than the 32-year-old Phoenix, but you can see I cast him. And while Meredith is thinking about that question, I do want to do one other shout out because I'm now able to see all the people who've shown up. There is one other public figure in our group tonight, and I thought maybe Gypsta might want to. We have a recording artist among us. So I don't know if Gypsta, you want to say a quick hey, we have a famous recording artist here with us.
No pressure. Hi, everyone. Well, music is very unrelated to literature, except there's so many words, and I'm a wordsmith. And I feel that I really just enjoyed listening to everyone speak tonight because maybe I use a lot of esoteric words when I shouldn't. And I feel it's so exciting when people bring words to life. And Carol, I know you're a wordsmith and a word lover. And this was like top-notch presentation. This is why you're so successful at your day job. And of course, who isn't drawn into seeing David Beckham? And also the military guy is also very attractive. Where's the lie? I private messaged him in the chat. He didn't want to respond to me. It's a lot of issues. No, but seriously, we're so proud of you. We know you're very passionate about your work, and I'm so happy, and so is Peter, my husband, to see you flourish. So thank you for this evening.
All right,
well,
we already bought
now
the
we
book,
have somebody who can write the score too. This is great. You guys got it all together.
I see your rainbow shirt, Miss Sherry.
That's right. That's from Book Expo. It says books are for everyone. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Anyway, hi everybody. It's not my moment, so Carol, love you.
Meredith, you're casting?
Oh my gosh. I know. I was too busy listening. I don't know. Someone really gorgeous and hot. I just kind of pictured him a little bit like that picture. Was that David Beckham that was in that picture? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was someone like that. And for her, I don't, do you have any thoughts for her? I kept picturing just you.
Aw.
You. Yeah. Gorgeous and smart and
I actually was trying to make a book trailer.
Reese Witherspoon. Everyone loves Reese Witherspoon.
She is adorable.
She's the best TikTok ever. Just saying.
I actually was trying to make a book trailer for Goodbye Orchid, and I was looking for talent. And my friend Karen Tanabe, whose quote you saw early on, she's actually half Japanese, and she's gorgeous. And I could, kind of picture Orchid like that. But if I had to cast Orchid,
have you done that yet? Have you done a book trailer yet?
No.
So honestly, I
Yeah.
would get with Danielle Kohler, who is John's daughter.
Hmm.
She does brilliant book trailers. They are non-live action, and you know, I've seen a lot of both, and obviously I've worked with a lot of authors who do both. I think that moving photos and things as opposed to bringing in talent is much better for a book trailer. And the reason is because books are, everybody wants to imagine who, I mean, I've got the Helmsworth boys, you know, playing Caleb and Phoenix. So, but everyone wants to have their own imagination on there. And it's very, very difficult to create a book trailer with live action talent that doesn't then feed into the reader's perception of that, pre-perception of that. Sometimes it's better just to create with some images and things. So think on that before you, yeah.
Very good point. Very good point. So I think we're closing out and we're saying our goodbyes, yes. And so I just want to say that all of you joining me here tonight for this first launch event for Goodbye Orchid is truly a dream come true. So thank you for that. Thank you for being part of this journey. Thank you for being part of the journey of my lives, like old friends, new friends who are on here. Just huge gratitude to everybody. Thank you so much.
It's a great group. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.